Good morning, YouTube. Today we have Danny Pasilla featuring his Darkworlds.
This is definitely probably one of my most favorite decks to play. This is one of the decks I cannot ever see myself putting down. To start off the deck, we do play 3 Graphs. This is essentially the boss monster of the deck, and whenever it's discarded, you target a card and destroy it. It's pretty good.
What do you draw with it?
What do I?
This is a graph.
Oh, I get it. Graph.
Sorry, bad joke.
Grapha.
Moving along.
3 Snow. Snow is the main searcher of the deck. It can even search itself. It literally searches any Darkworld card whenever it's discarded. So that's why it's really good. And then you play 3 Brows. Brow essentially is whenever it's discarded, you just draw a card. So that's why he's really good. He's kind of one of the main draw dudes of the deck, and that's why I really like him. This is your main kind of lineup of your dudes, but we do play 3 more. But this is your main set that you'll play 3 of at each. The best ones. And then we also play 2 Beige. Beige's thing is whenever he is discarded, he special summons himself inherently. So that's why this is really good. And he's also a level 4, so he's normal summonable. Just like all of them are normal summonable for your graph. So that's why Brow is really good. But we don't play 3, mostly because they are cloggy. But we do play 1 Lucent. Okay, so a lot of people do choose to play Silva because it's a strong beater and they can make rank 5 plays with it. But the thing is, I never really plan on actually summoning this thing. And I like his secondary effect better. So his normal effect is whenever he's discarded, he special summons himself, just like Silva. He's also stronger than Silva by 100 points. But his other effect is whenever he is discarded by an opponent's card effect, which is possible. Essentially, you get to special summon a fiend from your graveyard to either side of the field. So that's why he's really good. You can basically just reborn Grapha if he's discarded by any card effect. And in addition to him being special summoned. So that's why Lucent's really good. I just find him to be a little bit better than Silva, and that's why I'd rather run him. He's just as cloggy as Silva, to be honest. So that's all of the actual Darkworld monsters. For the regular fiends, we do play True Trance. Essentially, this thing allows you to discard a monster, not by cost. He gains a boost, and whenever he is destroyed by battle or card effect and goes to the graveyard, he can add any of your banished monsters, banished dark monsters from your banished onto your hand. So that's why he's pretty good. We do play 1 Raven. Essentially, card destruction and Morphing Jar are banned. This is essentially our response to that. And he's a tuner, so he gives us cool, cute little synchro plays. Essentially, his main effect, though, that we'll be using is that we can discard any amount of cards from our hand. And that's why we use him. If we open up this with like 4 or 5 other Darkworlds, we can really just kind of go off because he's our replacement. And then we do play 1 Tour Guide to essentially search out the Scarm, which Scarm essentially searches out our Brow. And that's why it's good. It essentially just adds a fiend to the hand. It doesn't really matter too much if you actually open with it. It's still a decent discard target, but it does kind of suck if you open up like this and not this. So, but it's whatever. That's it for the monster lineup. It's pretty small. We want to keep it kind of small for our spells and traps. So for starting with the spells, we do play 3 Darkworld Dealings. This is a simple draw 1, discard 1. Both players do that. That's why it's really good. One of our main search cards for the snow is we do play 3 Gates of Darkworld. This thing is, first off, all fiends gain 300 attack and defense, that's whatever. But what we can do during our turn is we can banish a fiend to discard a fiend, then draw a card. So this plus snow is really good, causes a lot of shenanigans where we just use snow, search out this, discard another snow, search out the other one, or search out other snows to essentially start searching out these ones. We can make really cool loops with this card, and that's why I really like it.
Shenanigans.
Yes, lots of shenanigans. And then for the other main 3 of in the deck that we do play is 3 Drag Downs. This essentially is both players look at each other's hands, and then discard 1 card from each other's hands, and then we draw a card. This really causes other really big shenanigans whenever you have like just a Grapha in your hand, and you set your entire hand, play one of these, and all you have is a Grapha, so it leaves only like 1 card to discard, and it's really funny. That's why I really like Drag Down. Then for next of the spells, we do play 2 Allure of Darkness.
Yeah.
And 1 Upstart Goblin. Essentially, 2 of our Upstart Goblins went away, so we just replaced them with Allure of Darknesses. That was literally the only real trade-off. So not much of a problem there, essentially. So it's good. No problem. And for last of the spells, we do play one Foolish Burial, because it's Foolish Burial. We send the Grapha to the graveyard, because he's kind of better in Grave, but it definitely sets it up, and that's why it's really good. And then one Gateway to the Dark World. Essentially, this thing is a monster reborn for Dark World monsters, but we can't special or normal summon the turn we actually use this. So that's why we usually want to do this on our opponent's end phase. There's a lot of cool shenanigans with this whenever we use the viruses in the deck, which we'll get to in a second. That's it for the spells. It's mostly consistency with a few other like techs. Then for the traps, we do play 3 Reckless Greeds. Essentially, this deck doesn't hurt at all from the non-draw to drawback. There's been very few times, and this has actually been used not very well on myself. But most of the time, this comes in clutch a lot, and that's why it's very important. I think this is one of the decks that can actually get away with it, and that's why I really like it, getting into those combo pieces. So next for the next three traps, they're kind of weird, mostly because I don't have Mind Crushes. So what I've done to supplement that is 2 Robin Goblins and 1 Forced Requisition. So essentially what these do is every time you do damage to your opponent, they have to discard a card from their hand. And this is, after you discard a card, you can activate this, but then every time you discard a card from that point on, your opponent also has to discard a card.
So evil.
So essentially just messes with your opponent's hand even more. It's really, really fun. It's also like the same thing with Mind Crush, essentially. Just taking cards out of your opponent's hand, just this time you can't actually see it. Would I play Mind Crushes over these? Yeah, but these are still fun to play with, and I still enjoy them.
I kind of like these a little bit more.
Yeah,
There's a lot more.
There's a lot of fun.
I mean, you can't select the card, but still.
Yeah. So next up, we do play 1 deck Devastation Virus.
Ooh.
Essentially, we tribute off our Grapha, in this case, and then we look at our opponent's hand for the next 3 turns. That, in my opinion, is the most important part. And then every monster with 15 or less attack goes to the graveyard. And that's the other most important part. But the most important part, in my opinion, is the fact that we get to see our opponent's hand for the next 3 turns. Same thing with Eradicator Virus. This one's actually at 1, so we can only run this one. I'd run more of these if I could. But essentially, we tribute off our Grapha, same thing, and we select either spells or traps. And then we look at our opponent's back row and their hand for the next 3 turns, and then we essentially send all spells and traps from their deck to the graveyard, and any card they draw. If they search spells or traps, they get to keep them. That's the problem with these. They have to actually draw them, but it doesn't matter when they draw them. So that's a pretty cool thing too. But once again, we just get to see our opponent's hand, and that opinion is the most important part. And for the last of the traps, we do play 1 Skill Drain. My favorite version of Darkworlds was Skillless Darkworlds, which basically allowed us to play like 3 Skill Drains, plus like Malefics. But Skill Drain went to 1, very devastating, because I bought like 1 Skill Drain after, like right before the ban list that time, so it was whatever. We can still play Skill Drain. Skill Drain is like absolutely devastating, in my opinion, and that's why I love Skill Drain. That's it for the main deck. 40 cards. I always run 40 cards. For the extra deck, it's kind of whatever for the most part, because a lot of the times you won't be really going into it, but a lot of your stuff is made with Grapha, essentially. So we do run the Spider Trio, which is essentially just any Dark level 8, the number 84 Pain Gainer. This thing is really cool because this thing is essentially a Dark Hole or a Raigeki for your opponent. Because what it does is whenever it comes out, it gains defense equal to the defense of all XYZ monsters' ranks on the field times 200. So it already comes out as 22. So that's what's pretty good. So essentially you can detach a material and destroy all monsters your opponent has with defense equal to or less than his defense. But if you have another one on the field, it just gets even bigger. So after we do that, we go into number 77, 7 Sins, which essentially is a 101, because anytime it would be destroyed by battle card effects, we can detach a material instead. And then when it gets back to our turn, we detach a material and banish all special summon monsters our opponent controls, and we take one of them and attach it to this one. It's really, really good, and if this thing stays on the field during our next turn, we essentially win when this thing comes out. But it's really, really good. We run this in Darkworlds. I like it. For extra miscellaneous level 8, rank 8s, we do play Heliopolis. Being able to just non-targeting clearing is really, really good. Felgrand, being able to negate effects is really, really good. Alcea, which is really good. It's the level 8 Castell of the deck. I like it a lot. That's it for the rank 8s. Next for the rank 4s, we do play Deckathon Emerald, being able to recycle any cards into our decks. Mostly our Essentially, I want to recycle snows mostly with this, and that's what he's pretty good for, because then we could just like keep going and doing our stuff. Double Dweller, because we're weak to the just Dweller, but we're also going to use Dweller against our opponent. So that's why it's really, really good. I like it. 101, because 101 is still really good. Taking our opponent's Ignister. Castell, being able to spin our opponent's Ignister is also really good, or just any Monarch cards.
You don't like an extra, do you?
Ignister is a threat for most decks. And then we do play 1 Leviair, because we do banish quite a bit, actually, in this deck. And being able to overlay into this, and like mostly with Tour Guide and Scarm, then detaching, bringing back probably like a Snow, because Snows are the mostly banished things. And then like being able to go for a Grapha play is really, really good, and that's why you run Leviair. You could probably choose to run 2 if you really wanted to. I just have only 1. And then for the small amount of XYZs we run 2 7s in the form of Black Rose and Moonlight Dragon. Essentially, just getting rid of monsters. Moonlight Dragon is very, very important. Disregard the fact that it's not in the sleeve.
It's important, but...
Yeah. And then 1 Goyo. Goyo is just a big hitter, and that's why I really like it. It's a big 28 wall that I enjoy playing. That's it for my Darkworld deck profile. This deck is pretty cheap for the most part. It's also really fun to play. It's a different play style. This deck is always something that has an advantage to top, because this is something that people just hate seeing, especially at locals for what it is now. Couple things that would make it better is maybe a few cards that come off the ban list, like Morphing Jar and Card Destruction. Like, if those were to come off the ban list, this deck would be... I think this deck would definitely be up there. Definitely giving it some more power. But the deck is very strong and very consistent for what it is right now, and very fast. Just a few bricky hands every now and then. But this deck is still really, really good and very strong, and I think has a chance. So, that's it. Thank you.